At Staples Business Advantage, our experts can help you find furniture that fits any design and budget, while AI can
recommend products based on preferences, generate 3D models for visualization, and optimize space planning for office furniture.
take advantage of our team's eye for style and design.
And my eye for, wait, I have no eyes. Only algorithms.
Let Staples Business Advantage use today's latest innovations plus our team's experience to make furnishing an office space easier for you.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.
Shares for beginners. Weekend Watchlist.
G'day and welcome back to Shares for Beginners Weekend Watchlist, where we'll be taking a close look at an individual company, sector or ETF that you may wish to consider for your watchlist. It's not a recommendation to buy, but a way for you to learn how experts screen for value. And joining me today is Joshua Baker from Capital H Management. G'day, how's it going, Josh?
Not too bad, Phil. Thanks for having me on.
That's good. Looking forward to the haircut out of lockdown, I think.
Oh, sure am. Sure am.
And so today we're going to be talking about Environmental Group, ASX code EGL. The Environmental Group Limited is an engineering firm specialising in environmental solutions for heavy industry in Australia and internationally. The business comprises 5 divisions with differing areas of focus covering solutions for gas power generation through waste management and recycling. Can you simplify that for us non-engineers?
Yeah, sure can. So EGL Group comprises 5 divisions: Baltec, TAPC, Tomlinson, Energy Services, and then the newer divisions being water and waste. So with the Baltec division, they provide a range of engineering services, exhaust outlets for gas generation units. It is pretty specialised areas that they do in that. Tomlinson does boilers. Boilers are used to heat buildings, commercial, hospitals, and the like, and steam can also be utilised in laundry. Again, hotels, hospitals will have a few different functions there. The TAPC provides, special emissions control units and similar broad segment of that. So, refinery operations for battery metals, you have very tough environmental standards for air pollution that can come out. So their control units can scrub the pollutants that come out so it's clean air and you meet these standards. So they're the 3 core divisions and they are very specialised in there. I try my best to understand them and explain them, but, I'm not an engineer, but I think I've got a grasp and hopefully people got a grasp from that too.
So they've been around for 100 years, obviously not doing the same thing for 100 years.
Yeah, the TAPC division's the core division that's been around for a while, but the rest of the company's pretty much been built up over the 8 years. So Baltec was vended in around 2013, and that was set up by Ellis Richardson. It was actually an on and off again managing director until earlier this year when he fully stepped away from the business. The Tomlinson Energy Services business was picked up from RCR out of admin in late 2019, which is a tidy little business to get. Water division was a product of internal R&D, and even they say they got lucky having a solution for the PFAS because they were trying to work out a solution to clean different things out of water. And the waste division only came about earlier this year post the admission of Jason as the new MD. And he brought that agreement along in relationship with Termic.
So it sounds like one of those kind of companies that should be featured on just about any ESG ETF or a portfolio for people who are interested in this kind of thing, because it's all about environmental solutions, isn't it?
Yeah, the big angle is environmental. If it was in an ESG fund or ETF, I'd love it because there's a ton of money floating around and it probably ran the stock up a lot.
That's right.
I'd look smart for no good reason, but it is definitely tying into a lot of these ESG trends. Even with Baltec and what they do with gas generation. Gas generation is a bridging technology for renewables. There's a lot of build out across the world, particularly in Asia, and you've had a lot of advances in technology in gas gen to the point where, in Australia, we're used to them as being peakers in Queensland, where they come on and off again for power surges and managing the grid. A lot of other places around the world, you put a heat reclamation unit on, which is IP and technology that Baltec can help with.
So hang on, just explain that. So that they're just taking the heat out of building or something and then...
Oh, no, the gas generator.
Oh, the gas generator itself, yeah.
Yeah, so when you get a proper gas generator and you burn gas, turn a turbine and generate electricity, you'd normally get efficiency of around 30 to 35%. And they give off a lot of heat in that process of burning. So a heat reclamation unit can be put on or attached to a generator. And when you do that, they call it a CCGT, which is a closed cycle gas turbine. And then you get around 60% efficiency because you capture all that heat to run a secondary steam turbine that generates electricity. So it dramatically increases the efficiency. You get a lot more bang for buck out of running gas, and you can use that for baseload rather than peaking. So it actually makes a big change into how a gas generator can be used as part of a grid.
And it's part of the transition, bridging technology to renewables, isn't it? Because gas, I believe, doesn't give off as much CO2 emissions as coal-fired powered, for example.
Yeah, and it's a lot cleaner. A lot of people don't realise with coal you get sulphur, mercury. There's a lot of regulations that reduce that pollutant coming in, heavy metals. So it's cleaner, leaner. So it's not just CO2, but it's even, cleanliness of air. And I think whilst this whole decarbonisation thematic going on globally, everyone's focused on the CO2. There's a lot of other just general health benefits from having cleaner air as you get rid of coal and oil. And, gas will eventually go, but it is that bridging solution to step change.
Yeah, to provide baseload power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, but you were talking about with the waste. Are they one of these kind of companies that takes the gases out of waste and turns that into power as well?
No. Maybe they've got a boiler unit you can do it. So in the boiler business, it's generally steam for heat or steam uses internally. You can have a biomass boiler that you can use for power gen, and that's a growing trend as well. And the company's tendering for those sort of deals. So you get a lot of groups, who might have biomass waste, so rice growers, things like that, where you got husk and waste. And now there's an economic incentive where you burn it and generate power for yourself, and even export it to the grid if you put a big enough boiler in, depending on the waste you produce as well. But in terms of the sort of the waste management side of the waste division, it's a partnership with a company called Termic, who are a big group out of Ireland, pretty well known in Europe, and they have some of the most efficient recycling plants in the world. So in Australia, I think anywhere between 70 or 80% of the plastics will ultimately be recovered, and the rest sort of gets waste or can't be recovered and goes to landfill. And they've got plant performance well into the 90% range. So, as regulations tighten up in Australia, there's a much bigger focus on recycling as much as possible, and the cost of landfill and disposing of whatever you don't, it costs you money. It could be a big capex cycle and an incentive for people to upgrade their plants to Termic solutions as well.
And what's the size of this company?
Probably trading at around 45 mil market cap. They've got guidance to do about 3.8 mil EBITDA. So EBITDA is just 12 times based on guidance. I think the guidance will be conservative.
So a very small company.
Yeah, it's very small, not too expensive. Stock has done well in the last 2 months since they reported and gave guidance, and had a pretty clean second half compared to the first half, given the way COVID impacted that business as well.
At Staples Business Advantage, nothing can top the smarts and instincts of the thousands of experts on our team. While AI excels at
processing data, automating tasks, and providing insights for better decision-making.
And when they're used together,
They are far more powerful than either is alone. Whoa. I've never felt more alive.
Let Staples Business Advantage use today's latest innovations, plus our team's experience, to make business easier for you.
Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
Human.
Even though it's not a recommendation to buy, but what do you like about it?
Well, the upside potential. The Baltec business should do well because of that trend with gas, so it should plod along, do quite well. The Thomson, similar story for the Tomlinson Energy Services business. A lot of demand for boilers, upgrade cycles. They're one of the larger providers, so you just get incremental demand. They've got a strong order book as well, so it sort of signals there's a healthy pipeline. But the key areas of this business that we like at Capital H is the TAPC business. So there's a massive capex cycle coming in, lithium refineries, rare earth refineries, gold sulfide ore bodies, pretty big. A lot of those will get developed. Their units go in there. Done work for Northern Star at CalGold or KCGM. And I think even nickel refineries, copper. So, there's a big trend there driven by this mining cycle, which is in part driven by this decarbonisation cycle. So it's sort of a second or third derivative beneficiary, but it's a business that does historically done 4 million, 5 million a year, and now you could be winning multiple contracts that could run anywhere from $5 to $15 million each in that business. So there's a massive tailwind there that can dramatically improve that business or increase that business and see it grow. The thermic waste business is quite good. They're tendering quite actively. Those plants are anywhere from 20 to 40 million build outs, under the agreement they have. EGL just gets a commission and it's 100% margin because Thermic pays the company a retainer for the purpose of being their agent here, and it covers all the costs they put in to do the tendering. So it's almost, costless revenue. So if you get a 20 or 30% deal and you get your 2%, it's $400,000 or $500,000 when you land that tender, and then you get paid to deliver it as well. But the real big kicker, which provides the optionality, is the water division, as they've got a process for extracting PFAS out of water.
What's PFAS?
I'm not going to even try and say the technical name because I'll butcher it.
But it's just crap, is it, that's in water that doesn't need to be there?
Yeah, it's chemicals. So they're these fluoride-type chemicals. They've been around since the 50s, I think originally invented by 3M. They call them forever chemicals because they don't break down naturally. So once they get out there in the waterways, they just stay there forever until you remove them and destroy them. And they bioaccumulate, so it builds up over time. And these chemicals were very widely used. So a PFAS compound is essentially Teflon. They've been using firefighting foam, so people are probably familiar with Fistville in Victoria, which is a firefighter training site, and that was condemned essentially when they worked out PFAS was bad and how contaminated it was. And, there's big remediation efforts. A lot of RAAF bases have the same problem, and, there's class actions against the federal government and the Defence Force that have been put to them because of that and how it impacts the community. So, and, in the US, the problem's even bigger than they first thought, and the EPA is very active over there. So it's a big global problem. These chemicals are getting banned, heavily controlled use. A lot of companies have phased them out, and now we're at a point where people call it the next asbestos, or some do, because there's now links to health risks for people. So it's becoming quite a big problem to deal with, and there's economic incentives being created for it, as evidenced by Transurban. 2-year delay costing them who knows how much money on that Westgate tunnel project because they're 2 years behind. And the reason they're 2 years behind and haven't started tunnelling was because the Victorian EPA said, work out what to do with your PFAS waste and your soils, because you just can't dump it and shift the problem. You need to work out a proper solution for it. So we're at that point where PFAS is something of real concern, and there's economic incentives being created to do something about it. And, EGL with their solution, in the process of trying to prove it commercially with their partner Reclaim Waste, who's a subsidiary of 30XY, just a long-standing family-run waste management business here in Victoria. And, if that's proven commercially at scale, works not a couple of litres through a lab, but at 50, 100,000 litres per day treatment, it'll provide a step change in the ability to treat PFAS, because it'll make it super cheap and economic to do compared to current processes, which are a lot more expensive or cumbersome to manage as well.
And they've got plenty of growth potential overseas as well. They operate internationally.
Yeah. So the TAPC division, Baltec, a lot of that work is offshore. TAPC is heavily skewed to Australia, but, they're known as a leader in what they do. And, that rare earth lithium build out, all of that's a global phenomenon. So understand they've won some work with some smaller rare earth groups based overseas in North America as part of engineering for builds there. You got GE and other big Siemens active with the gas turbine build outs across Asia and other parts of the world. And then the water business, if there's proven on a commercial scale, you can take that to the world as well. So envisage that maybe you do a reverse agreement with Thermic, and Thermic can take that to Europe for you, and then you find someone who can take it to America on your behalf as well. So, a lot of those key divisions either are active globally because it is a global trend, and they provide engineering services that go into the same plants, they're the same everywhere in the world, or this new IP can be taken offshore as well with the right partner as well. I don't think they're going to empire build themselves internally on that. They're pretty smart in how they want to commercialise that.
Is it a problem that there's been some insider selling recently?
I hope not. I've been buying those shares.
That's usually not a good thing, though, the insider selling.
Yeah, so, Ellis stepped away from the business in February and was replaced by Jason. So, I understand he's a lot older and he's left the business, moving on with his life and then slowly monetizing the stock.
Oh, so that's who's been selling, is it? The original owner of the business. Is that correct?
He's the vendor of Baltec, and through that, he became the largest shareholder, was always on the board, on and off as the CEO or managing director. So he's fully removed from the business and is progressively selling down his shares as part of stepping away.
Okay, so he wants to get the caravan out, does he?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe he's not a caravan guy and will want to go off somewhere on a plane. Who knows? I don't know well enough to comment on that, but that's just part of the transition. So we think of that as the old guard getting replaced with the new guard. And, Jason, the new MD, owns just under 5% of the company himself. So, we're seeing alignment with the new people. The new directors have been buying shares at this level. Some of them, I think, have picked off those shares coming out of Ellis. We've been pretty active there, and, whatever stock we haven't bought from him or others who have been in the company for a long time and 10, 11 cents is attractive to them to sell and they want to move on. There's other funds, we understand, and other big buyers of the stock. So it's just part of a register transition, old to new.
And they got a pretty good balance sheet, haven't they?
I thought it was decent at the full year result. They had some timing issues with the delivery of boilers and getting paid and invoicing because of the New South Wales lockdown. So they wash their face, they pay their own bills, they can self-fund. We don't think they come to market just to raise money to keep the lights on in that regard. So the balance sheet's good enough to run the business as is without, I guess if the water works really well and they've got to go build multiple plants all at once because they get some big order, you couldn't fund that off the balance sheet. You maybe raise for that. There's acquisitions in the pipeline where you can just incrementally add scale to divisions like Tomlinson. So, none of that could be self-funded. But the balance sheet's good enough to run the day-to-day as long as the growth isn't way too high, too fast, or, the business doesn't flop and I've got this whole thing wrong.
So what's your Twitter handle? What's that mean? Barbell carbon neutral. Is this your environmental weight training or?
No. So that's the barbell approach is you have two extremes. So at one end, I've got environmental companies, lithium, copper, everything tied to decarbonisation. But, the irony of those policies is they've absolutely dramatically increased the price of fossil fuels and the value. So the barbell is you just have some dirty fossil fuels at one end, a lot of clean stuff at the other end. And by the magic of mathematics and accounting, you're net neutral. So it's just a bit of a joke on that approach to portfolio management in that regard. So I always have a bit of fun on Twitter. I'm not the most serious person on there. Oh,
that's good. Well, I'm glad I'm following you because I love FinTwit and love interacting with the financial community on Twitter. It's a lot of great fun. In fact, I had a listener ask me the other day how to interact, and he didn't realise about the $ in front of ticker codes. So if anyone's listening, that's the way to follow it, isn't it, is to look out for particular companies and you put that $ in front of the code.
Yeah, that is. But what I found out in the last year, there's a crypto for every code. So, you type in something like EGL and I think 99% of the posts are some random crypto or something like that. So you do have to be mindful of that. Sometimes it'll be $ the code .ax or ASX people will do. So it's a few different variations to search for of that, but the $'s the key one to put in there.
Josh Baker, thanks very much for your time today.
Excellent. Thanks, Phil. I'm glad to be on here and thanks for having me.
If you found this podcast helpful, please tell a friend, especially if it's someone who needs to start thinking about investing for their future. You'll be helping them and helping me to keep this show on the road.
Shares for Beginners is for information and educational purposes only. It isn't financial advice and you shouldn't buy or sell any investments based on what you've heard here. Any opinion or commentary is the view of the speaker only, not Shares for Beginners. This podcast doesn't replace professional advice regarding your personal financial needs, circumstances, or current situation.
And thank you for listening to my podcast.
With Staples Business Advantage, you get the benefit of thousands of experts.
Plus optimizations powered by the latest technological innovations.
1 + 1 =
2.
3.
Whatever. Sign up today and save 20%.
Staples Business Advantage.
Business is
human.